Okay, November 12th, Friday morning. Chewy, we've had a great show so far this morning with the one-armed PGA golfer, but I'll tell you what, we saved the heavy hitters for last. And the introduction of this man, he's my second father, my father on earth right now, besides my godly father, is Mr. Big Jim Haslam, a.k.a. I call him Pops, but nowadays I don't feel comfortable calling him that too much, so I like Mr. Haslam with who he is.
Come on.
So he's come down to the wood gym for the second time. The first show was just Pops and I chopping it up for an hour, and then we're doing this 6-part mental toughness, which we've got Jimmy's text message, we've got Harrison's, we've got Helton's, Pennington's. Mm-hmm. We're asking everybody what mental toughness is. Is it developed? Is it innate? Are you born with it? Dr. James Chu, you've been so excited about having the big man here, so rock on. It's all you from here.
Oh, man. All me. Well, sir, thank you so much for coming in here. We really appreciate it. The big question for some of the listeners and one of the guests that was on here was, where does mental toughness come from? And so, are you born with it? Is it your environment? Is it something that you figure out later on in life? And we've had a number of people with different backgrounds. And I was thinking to Charlie, I was like, there's one client you've got in your back pocket that has the long view of what it was like in America. Is it because one of the things that we questioned was, America's gotten soft over the years and past couple generations. We've had it good in America for so long, and does that make the next generations a little bit less grateful, a little bit more entitled? Does that also breed a little bit of more weakness because everything is just handed to us because life is good in America? And we're thinking, there is one gentleman that lived during the Great Depression. When America wasn't so great at that time, things were much tougher, has a long view of America, has raised accomplished, tough children and grandchildren, and I'm assuming great-grandchildren.
16 great-grandchildren.
16 great-grandchildren. That's amazing. And so that is a perspective that not a lot of people are going to hear, and I was dying to hear this perspective from you. So you were born in 1930 in Detroit, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
1929, at the end of 1929 was the Great Depression.
Yeah, I guess the Depression started in 29, and it really lasted almost to World War II before we got out of the Depression.
Your formative years.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You were raised during a very tough time in America's history then at that time. So America was fundamentally different, and that might have changed the way that you... And also, Prohibition had not ended. 1933 is when Prohibition ended, so that was a different America as well. I mean, So let us know what it was like growing up during that time and how it may have shaped a mentally tough individual like yourself.
Well... as I think back, it was different, but everybody was the same, if you understand what I mean. So we didn't know of all the luxuries and things that young people grow up with now. So we thought we had plenty. If you know what I mean. We never thought, hey, gosh, we don't have anything or anything like that. But it's how you grow up and mental toughness. I think a lot of things that you develop mentally are a product of the things you do, your environment, the people you see, the people you are with. And that's one reason I think everybody ought to participate in sports. And I think it's another reason when you're young, you ought to participate in team sports. Because then you know what it's like to be a teammate. You develop with your teammates a sense of togetherness, and you develop some of that mental toughness. Now, part of that mental toughness might be working out with the Charles Patrons of the world and everything.
Yeah.
Some of that mental toughness might be studying hard.
Yeah.
Some of it might be working so you have enough money to spend. Some of it might be taking good care of your younger brother or sister. But mental toughness invokes itself in all ways. Let me give you an example of mental toughness. This was about 20 years ago. Oops. Let me punch this turn this off so that doesn't happen again here. Okay. A pilot or our family had made a gift to somebody at the university or something. And it was a Saturday morning, and there's a market out on North Shore called Butler and Bailey. And I was going in there, it was about 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. And there was a lady with her young daughter selling Girl Scout cookies. So I bought some Girl Scout cookies, and she said, "Thank you, Mr. Haslam." And she recognized me and for the gift we had made. And I said, "Well, thank you." I said, "Tell me about yourself." She said, "Well, I'm a single mom, and I work during the week. So on weekends, I try to do things with my children. And this morning, I'm selling Girl Scouts cookies. And this afternoon, I'm going to work at the concession stand at Rocky Hill, at the Little League Park at Rocky Hill." That's mental toughness. You understand what I mean? She has to work to support her kids. And yet the time she's not working, rather than doing something, she continues to support her kids. And there are all kinds of mental toughness. That's just as much mental toughness as the athlete who works so hard and then comes through in the clutch, the people that he develops. You see what I mean? Yeah. So mental toughness kind of comes out in different sorts of ways. You know?
She's coming out in the clutch for her family.
Yeah. She's taking care of her family, and that's that mental toughness inside her that says, "Hey, rather than doing something myself on the time I have off, I'm going to do something for my family."
For your family. Family is...
And then make one more point. What she was saying was that, and what I told her is, you can give of your time and your talent and your treasure, as they say. And people like us who give of our treasures get too much credit. This lady doesn't get enough credit. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that's that's some of the mental toughness involved. That's just one example.
That's amazing. Wow. So that
I
love that. Oh gosh,
you.
That is so genuine, heartfelt, and so simple. Such a simple message. You're clearly a person who who's lived a family-oriented life. You have a family business that has done so well. How is it that you were able to impart so much to your family as well? Doing what you did was extremely tough. It took an incredible amount of resilience. And your kids have also done the same, continued on. So one of the fathers here has questions. Well, how do I pass this on to my 8-year-old son?
It's easy. This is really interesting. Jimmy, Ann, and Bill were maybe 7, 5, and 3. And we had a very difficult weekend at home with kids. Anybody who has young kids knows what I'm talking about. I think our future governor had gone and opened up I still call it an icebox, refrigerator, taken the milk out and poured it in the floor. I wonder, why would somebody do that? Anyhow, I'd gone to a meeting up in Ohio, an oil marketers meeting, and there was a man named Paul Deere there, and he owned a company called Bonded Oil Company. had 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, just like we had. And they were all in the business. The daughter's husband was working there. 2 sons were working there. And one of the sons was in charge of the meeting. And I'd be sitting next to Mr. Deere. And at one point I said, Mr. Deere, we have 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. They're 7, 5, and 3. And you've got Randy, and I forget what the other son's name was, maybe Paul Jr. and so on. And how'd you get him turned out that way? He looked at me and said, the only two things you can do for your children. Yes, sir, what is that? He said, number 1, set a good example. And number 2, spend time with them. And when you're raising kids, you have to set a good example. And you have to spend time with them. And, everybody says, well, how do you run a business and spend time with your kids? Well, the most important decision you make every day, this is part of mental toughness, is what you can do with your time.
You only have so much of it, right?
You don't only have so much of it. You know what I mean? And make your little card out and say, hey, I'm going to work out for an hour, do this and that for an hour. But the funniest thing is, when I was leaving the meeting, Mr. Deere said, hey, Jim Haslam, come here a minute. I want to tell you something else. He said, there's a third thing. I kind of, yes, sir. What is it? He said, pray a lot. But it's kind of funny. When I was in high school, and it was during track season, and we went to school, the football field and the track were at about 100 yards to where the locker room was, and it was kind of a gravel kind of driveway. And the guy who was the best sprinter on a relay team took his track shoes off and walking across there and cut his feet and couldn't run the state track meet. And I was always on Jimmy and Bill and them when they were little kids. Wear shoes all the time. When you're walking around, you're going to cut your feet. Well, one time, Whitney, Jimmy's oldest daughter, and now Jimmy's, I don't know, in his 30, 35 or something. Whitney's 4 or 5. And he said, Whitney, wear your shoes. You might cut your feet when you're walking around. So what I'm saying is that your children will mimic you and do the same things you do. Yeah. And that's why it's so important you set a good example. Well,
one of the first things that you talked about that really struck me in your conversation with Charlie, I listened to it twice, but it's so good, was that you talked about when you're running your business, you have standards. Mm-hmm. And when you're talking about an example for your children, are you also in some ways, trying to set a standard for how? I think you want to have standards, and I mean our first standard is always our faith, and you have to pass that on to your children, and your faith has to come. Your faith has to come first, and we have a lot of standards, but just we want to have high standards, and we want everybody to set goals. And when Jimmy, Ann, and Bill were little, we'd always take a little vacation after Christmas before New Year's. I'd take a yellow pad out, and I said, write me down your goals for the year. How old were they when they were?
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, whatever it is. Yeah. And you have to have goals, and then you have to hold people accountable. And it was funny, we were talking the other day, and somebody said, come up with 5 things of leadership. And here are the 5 I came up with. And there are a million, okay? Number 1, you have to be optimistic. If you aren't optimistic, you can't be a leadership. And your goals and everything you do have to reflect that optimism. Number 2, you have to listen to people. You're never going to be a leader. People aren't going to, listen to people. Listen to people who have different opinions than you do. They might be right. You aren't always right. The third thing is you have to trust people. If you want people to trust you, you have to trust them. Fourth thing, you have to respect people. Fifth thing is you have to set standards and hold people accountable. You know, I mean, if, Charles says, well, hey, you need to do 10 exercises, 10 of these. He's not telling you to do 9. He's not telling you to do 11, but he's telling you to do 10. But you probably ought to do 11.
But not 9.
That's standards.
Not 9.
Standards. Not 9.
Not 9. Now, the standard's 10.
Yeah.
But we want to be a little better than the standard. We don't want to be average. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last thing, and I think it's really, really important in whatever you do, is a humility.
Humility.
Yeah, I think that humility is part of mental toughness. Mental toughness is not pounding yourself in the chest and saying, see how well I can run the football, I just scored a touchdown. Humility is looking up there and going like that. Yeah. Or pointing to all your teammates. Oh. These 10 guys are what made it happen.
You know, you talked about individual sports being so important, and he is a team man. And I think that is such an interesting, but his world is a team world too. I'm sure business was part of that, a team world. Chaz, any thoughts right now?
I'm just so happy that you got to listen to him. You're like you're so glowing, and we got our producer taking notes, and I'm taking notes, even though I've heard this for 25 years. I still like it.
30 years.
30 years.
Whatever.
So the thing that I like, when I did my podcast, we talked about mental toughness. I thought the both worked well together, because when you do a single sport, it's you against you, and you could really see your flaws so much quicker, correct?
Oh, yeah.
And then your team sports, it's still you against you, but you're counting on whatever it is, 9 people, 11 people on the field, 5 people on the court. So I think they're both really, really good. And I think Mr. Haslam has, Jimmy and the guys Jimmy ran track. That's a solo sport to see where he is. Or he races his old man on Kingston Pike. I mean, those are things that they both work, and I loved handling team, because still Mr. Haslam knows that when you create a team, you still have that person has to concentrate on their discipline or their task, or the team doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, football's the greatest example. If 10 people do their assignment and one person misses, the play doesn't work. You know what I mean? And it's that's why for young people, team is so important. Now, individual sports teach you that, hey, there's nobody backing you up. It's just me. And life, a lot of it is just me. Yeah. So there's a lot of room for individual sports, but I think team sports for younger people are so important.
I want to go back to humble beginnings, because I want to talk about 1930 and some of the things I pulled up from 1930, because I think it's so interesting.
You're like a kid in a candy store.
You like the price of gas is something that you intimately have known all of your career. Do you know what the price of gas in 1930 was?
Well, we weren't selling gas in 1930.
But I'm just saying.
I'm going to tell you that.
Okay.
When we started selling gas, I know exactly what the price was.
What was that?
$27.9.
Well, that's awesome. In 1930, it was 10 cents per gallon.
10 cents per gallon.
10 cents per gallon. And if a brand new car.
A brand new car costs what, $200?
Pontiac Big Six. Do you know a Pontiac Big Six was $745? Yeah. A bread, 9 cents. The average wage was a little less than $2,000 a year.
Yeah.
And then a new house. Chaz, how much do you think a new house cost back in
1930?
Yeah.
$5,000.
$7,150. $7,000. It's a different time back then. A different time back then. And some interesting stuff that I found was like the Prime Minister of Italy was Benito Mussolini. And Stalin was in power in Russia.
So you're putting all these timelines together, because Mr. Haslam was through these timelines, born in these timelines?
During that time. the tallest building in New York was not even the Empire State Building. They had not even built it. It was the Chrysler Building.
Chrysler. Hey, I'm going to tell you something else interesting. I was born in 1930, a male. What do you think my life expectancy was?
50?
57.
57.
Holy.
Back then. Oh, you did better than that.
So I'm playing on house money now, guys.
Do you know how many planets were in the solar system back then?
I'm not good at the solar system.
They had just discovered Pluto. So back then, they had only 8 planets that they had known about, and they discovered Pluto in 1930. So, I mean, this is just a different time back then. I think that's so interesting is humble beginnings, Great Depression, the Dust Bowl had just happened, Prohibition, FDR was just starting out, Hoover was your president when you were born. Different world.
So who won the World Series, you know?
I don't know who won the World Series that night.
Philadelphia Athletics.
The Philadelphia A's.
I miss that laugh. It's good to see you. I miss that laugh. You talk about optimistic with a personality. It's Mr. Haslam. And I could go on and on. When I was telling Griff, start making your schedule for the morning or the night before and stick to it. And I got it from Mr. Haslam. The index cards, I tell everybody. He's a relationship guy of calling everybody that works at Pilot their birthdays. He has a sheet like that. And that's why his time... And I have figured this out. The most important, busiest people, from Jimmy Haslam, his son, to Mr. Haslam, their time is so valuable on both ends. And he's given me so many lectures about time. He could give you a story about, you talk about mental toughness of when there weren't cell phones, and he was calling from urine-infested telephone booths, checking on stores. You know, you don't get those stories, Griff.
Yeah,
you don't get them.
It's amazing.
What we used to do is, the company's real small then. You had a lot of decisions that only you could make. So I would, and there were no cell phones, and we had traveling, so you stopped at a payphone booth, and I'd call the office at 11 and 4 every day. And they knew I was going to call them. Well, you'd stop on the side of the highway. There weren't a lot of interstates then either, and there'd be a phone booth. You go in and it smelled bad, and you'd make all your calls. And then you'd go back on your way again. But it was the communications now, the information you have, everything's, I got it all sitting right here. You didn't have that back then. And it was just a different kind of world and everything. Hey, tell them what I told you when your father died.
That story?
Yeah, tell him that.
It's the hardest story ever. First of all, my old man got to bike with Mr. Haslam on Cherokee Boulevard. Okay? and it was one of those where I knew that Mr. Haslam wouldn't judge him just of the person that Mr. H is, because of his humble beginnings, as you say.
Yeah.
So it wasn't one of those that he knew this guy could relate to everybody and anybody. I've seen it firsthand, 24/7. I've seen it. He treats everybody the same, and his humility with all his success is one of the questions I want to ask him. But when my father got killed in a motorcycle accident, they were pulling the plug on him Friday. The nurse called at like 2. Mr. Haslam's been through this tenfold over what I've had to go through. And I had Mr. H at 4. So I was sitting at Homburg Place, the cool brick gym that we had. And I called Teresa. And I said, hey, I can't make it at 4. I got to catch a flight and figure out. Because he knew what was going on that week. He was killed and in the hospital. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm closing up shop. I'll go home. I don't know. What do I do? Do I drink in sorrow? What do I do for this? Mr. Haslam calls me up, a.k.a. Pops. And he goes, get your butt over here for our 4 o'clock workout. I didn't say anything, but all the way over there, which was across Kingston Pike to the headquarters, I was like, this son of a gun. I was like, what type of heart does he have?
Heartless
son of a bee to have me come over here. And I walked down there, and he could tell, your first big loss, and you're probably, where am I? What am I?
Yeah.
And he's like, Charlie, I'm going to tell you something right now. Charles, I'm going to tell you something right now. This is the best thing you could do. What are you going to do from this time to when Mr. Haslam, the heart that he has, offered a jet at 6 o'clock to fly me up there to pull the plug on my old man? He's like, so what are you going to do for the next 2 hours while the jet's getting ready? We're going to train at 4, and life's going to go on, and you're going to move forward the next day. And to this day, best advice I ever had. And to be honest, Mr. Haslam, it's repeating. I'm saying that to my clients and things that now are coming to me with adversities, and I'm like, life keeps moving, and he showed me that, and that was out of love, and that's 1 Corinthians 13 in the Bible, is he loved me that much to be like that. And I was like, wow, the best thing ever happened to me.
Probably a story you'll never forget.
Never forget. I mean, I'll cry like a baby when he passes away, because he's been such a big influence in the business.
Hey, keep working.
Keep working. Yeah, keep working that day. That's what I'll think.
Don't take any time off.
Mental toughness, right?
That's mental toughness.
Yeah.
And he says some really good things that, I still hear from Jimmy and Annie and Stevie and all the grandchildren, is you talk about solo. He does think solo, because he says the one thing is, Charles, at the end of the day, nobody cares. It's up to you. Like, if you're sick, that you got, and Annie takes that on all the time.
That's so good.
People say, well, how are you? I don't feel really good. Well, nobody really cares how you feel. You know what I mean? I mean, get your butt to work.
I get you. That's great. You talk about team sport. You say you're a man of football. That was another thing that struck me in your conversation with Charlie the last time. Clearly, you were talking about the maxims and how that also applied to your business. Clearly, General Neyland, whom you played for, was a big influence at such a young age to shape you. What made that special for you, to shape you in order to get you to the next parts of your life?
Well, it was interesting. We'd been in business, 3 or 4 years. My mother still lived in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I'd gone down, maybe even for Mother's Day. And I was coming back on the plane, and that's when you had open seating. And I got the plane out of St. Petersburg, didn't have an airport, out of Tampa. And the guy came and sat next to me. He was a Southeastern Conference football official. And he said, somebody told me you'd gotten in business, Haslam. And I said, yes, sir. Guy's name was Jack Purrier. I said, yes, sir, Mr. Purrier. He said, what kind of business you in? I explained it to him. He said, I bet you're using the same principles that General Neyland taught you in football to your business. I said, yeah, we sure are. Well, then you went to Atlanta and changed planes. We changed planes to Atlanta. He went some other way. I got on a plane coming to Knoxville. I think I'm there. Are we? Okay, what do you do what did we do in football? Well, we went out and recruited the best players. Okay. Then when we got him, maybe a guy was a running back in high school, but he's going to be a linebacker or vice versa. We put him in the right place. Okay. Then we practiced. Okay. Then we had an overall game plan, and we had to follow that game plan, and then we played on Saturday. Okay? What do you do in business? You go out and get the best people you can. Then you put him or her in the right position. Then you train them. You practice. Then you have an overall game plan, and in our case, even though we play on Saturday, we played 24/7, 365.
The game was ongoing.
The game's always going on.
Yeah.
So sports, and it's basically the same, but if you take General Neyland's game maxims, they're 7. Well, the first 3 you can use in anything you want to do. Team makes the fewest mistakes wins. Key, fewest. If Charles were to go out and say, in training people, I'm never going to make a mistake, he's not a very good trainer. But if he makes more mistakes than other trainers, he's not going to make it. You see what I mean? Mm. So the team that makes the fewest mistakes wins, okay? Fewest. Take chances, okay? Number 2, play for and make the breaks when one comes your way, score. In life, you'll get certain breaks. He's got the breaks in his life. Chad Pennington was a break.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
Okay? Couldn't have a better person, a better billboard for you, you know, was a success at Webb, success at Marshall, success as a Jet. He's a great person, you know.
Yeah.
And that was a break he got.
Yeah.
Okay. Play for and make breaks when one comes your way, score. He scored. Okay. Number 3, if at first a game or a break goes against you, don't slow down and get rattled, put on more steam. Bad things are going to happen. Don't let them get you down.
Is that why he told him to go work out with you?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so they are. Now the next 3 are, you know, lining back, protecting kicker and passer, passing the kicking game. It's not the, well, let's say he says press the kicking game is here the breaks are made. What in business, there's certain key aspects of your business that are going to make you successful. And that's what you got to find out. See me? Mm-hmm. And so, but the game maxims you can use in life is what I'm saying.
It was so clear, you know, and your memory is just unbelievable. The other, was there something about you won a national championship with General Nealon. What made him so special as a person?
Well, he was an Army person, and so he was very disciplined, very go by the book. You know, he was a person who was tough, disciplined, had high standards, would hold you to those standards. And, I mean, it was an Army kind of disciplined way of life, which I personally think that, a lot like when I was growing up, you had to go and had to draft, you had to go into service. I think if we had compulsory military service, that'd be the best thing ever.
For that discipline and
for the,
learning.
Teach you discipline and teach you all that stuff. And so he was a product of that. But basically he was smart. He was very smart. He analyzed everything. I mean, he figured out, you know, before a football game, he was timing their punters, see how quick they got it off. We'd come in before the game and say, we can block a punt or we can't block a punt. You know what I mean? Everything was time, figured out in that way.
Held objective time standards and just very disciplined.
And preparation. I'll never forget this. In 1950, we played Alabama. We were down 9-7. We got the ball in our 20 with about 4 or 5 minutes to play. You didn't have 2-minute offenses then. But we made 2 big third down plays. We got down to where it was 3rd and goal at the 2-yard line. A guy named Andy Kozar took the ball and dove over, and we won 14-9. And that was maybe 30 seconds to go in the game. After the game, I'd bang my wrist up or something. And remember how they had those whirlpools, and I had my wrist sitting in the whirlpool. Well, the coach's dressing room was right by the training room. And he came out, and a sports writer came and said, General Nealon, and if you ever look at a picture of General Nealon, he's sitting on the bench. He's not up there in the sidelines with everybody else. The coaches sat, everybody sat in the bench. You didn't stand up, you sat in the bench. You're supposed to be rested. You know what I mean? Of course, there weren't 100 people on the team, you know. But anyhow, and the sports writer said, General Nealon, at the end of the game, on that play when Kozar scored, everybody in the stands, everybody in the stands, we have 45,000 people, half what we have now. Stadium was full. He said, everybody's up there standing and excited, and you're sitting there in this chair just watching. And I remember he said this, I have meticulously compared my team for any contingency, so all I can do is sit back and watch. Okay? In other words, you're going to war, but I've trained you how to go to war. So I can't do anything now. The war's up to you. You got it. That's why I was a good football guy.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Now,
and that's without water breaks. We talked about
we never took water.
We talked about that up in the office about 8 weeks ago when I went to visit him, and I asked him that question. What's mental toughness to you? And he does always say, Griff, positive attitude, optimistic. And then he was like, Charles, what does it look outside the windows? And he has an office that has beautiful windows and a beautiful view. And I was like, Pops, it's partly sunny. And he was like, and that's why you've been in business 31 years.
Yeah.
Because people could see it as partly cloudy.
Yeah.
And then I was like,
it's about to rain.
So what do you think where's the toughness gone, or how is it different? And he was like, water breaks.
3 foot putts. Water breaks.
3 foot putts and water breeks.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love it.
I mean, and it always bugs me now at football games. Some guy's lying there like he's half dead. And, and then we better come out, then they'll roll up and jog off the field. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We had a guy played for us named Gordon Pulaski, and some guy would be lying down like that, and he'd look at me and he'd say, are you hurt? Or are you checking your applause meter?
Nah.
He's got them all day like that. And all these guys he's mentioning, Hank from the Saints, I was privileged to be either in the travel squad with them to go to games and just sit in awe with these guys. And you can't get that back,
because their stories. And
you talk about old timers that are hard. You didn't even want to cross them then.
Yeah.
Compared to, we were talking about that with the the Cleveland Browns practices where every NFL practice now has all the monitors on so you can see when you're dehydrated, they actually are monitoring everything, and Mr. H is like, we just rubbed some dirt on it.
Yeah, come on.
And went to work.
One time Jimmy was a little kid, was sledding, and he came home and he said, I hurt my arm. And I looked at it and said, spit on it. That's my favorite thing.
Did you tell him the whole story? Did you tell him the whole story?
Spit on it. So he said, okay, well, Cynthia was all upset. His arm's bad. Well, 2 days later, the bone was sticking out. He'd broken his arm.
She called him, and she was like, Jim, I think you might have to go to the doctor. Jimmy tells me that story, Annie tells me that story, and Mr. H tells me that story all the time.
Well, another thing that caught me is from your conversation last time is that you said that you were a product of lucky breaks. All of your
I am tremendous.
Well, I want to respectfully disagree.
No, you're wrong there. I was able to take advantage of it. I've got a ton of lucky breaks. What?
Explain the lucky breaks, because I've heard tons of different stories, but
I'll give you an example of lucky break. We're living up outside of Philadelphia. I'm a pretty kind of fat, chubby kid. I'm playing on a really good high school football team. I'm maybe second or third best player. My father had been in the service. He retired. We moved to Florida. I lose 15 or 20 pounds. I'm a much better football player. It happens that the line coach at St. Petersburg High School went to school in Tennessee. So I came to Tennessee. Okay, if we hadn't have moved, I was an average football player on a good football team. I'd have maybe gone to Penn State. I don't know where I'd gone to school, but I got that break. You see what I mean? When I got out of the Army, I needed a job. General Nealon wanted all of his football players to be high school football coaches, because then they could send them all their players. So I had 2 high schools I talked to. It was February. Jimmy was almost a year old. I needed a job. They offered me a job, but they wouldn't start paying until summer. So they came back. UT had 2 jobs. They said they had. One was selling television ads for what's now Channel 6. The other working for a small oil company to follow. I went and talked to the people at Channel 6. They offered me the job. Well, let me back. the high school football coach job paid $350. They offered me a job selling television at $375 right in Knoxville. It was a Wednesday, and I had an appointment to go to La Follette to talk to a small oil company the next day. And they said, well, do you want the job or not? And I said, well, I'll let you know. And they said, you got to let us know by Friday. I said, okay. So I came home that night. My wife said, well, you're going to take that job, aren't you, right here? And I said, well, I'm not sure. So I went up to talk to people in La Follette, and I liked them. Came back, and she said, well, now, why in the world would you go to work for some small oil company when you can work for this big TV station? You know what I said? I'm not sure TV's going to make it. And I was serious. They just had 2 television stations. You had, black and white TV. And now you think I'm not lucky? I mean, come on. I can give you example after example.
Well,
excuse me, but he doesn't tell you this, but he was going to be a football coach.
Yeah.
Talk about lucky to what he got into, correct?
Yeah, I mean, as Jimmy said, if I'd have been the coach and he'd been the offense coordinator, he'd have quit or I'd have fired him in the second quarter.
Well, but I would say this. I would gather that's such a humble way of looking at such a great, business life. But you were prepared and you worked hard, and there's also an adage of the chance favors the prepared. So I'd say that you probably, and obviously you took your breaks and you scored, but you had to have worked so hard and been so disciplined in order to capitalize so much on the things that were opportunities for you.
Played for the breaks, when one comes your way, score. Yeah. I played for the breaks, and they came my way and I scored, but I got the breaks, okay?
But you got the breaks, and you're saying he was prepared when he got
I was prepared. Well, okay, if their team fumbles on their 20-yard line, that's a break. But we got to score. Mm-hmm. Okay? We don't need to score a field goal. We got to score a touchdown.
Yeah.
Okay? Mm-hmm. That's what we did.
The standards and accountability. Can't solve for field goal.
Hey, this is long enough. I can't talk any longer than that.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, really guys. It's fun.
It was awesome. Thanks, Amazing. Pops, for coming in the second time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
What's my fee?
Whatever you want. Thanks,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so your definition, so you could develop mental toughness. So you think you could develop mental toughness?
Yes.
Okay. Off those principles you said.
Yeah.
But you also product of environment. Do you think the two worlds collide?
I think your environment, if you're in an environment where you need to be tough, you either develop it and you make it, or you don't develop it and I'm not saying you're a cripple, but you don't achieve your full potential.
Yeah. I see that a lot.
Yeah. You see it.
I see it a lot.
Yeah.
So do you think it's the mind that takes over? I mean, you look at different players of all the safeties in the world, and you get one that's an all-pro and one that just plays. Yeah. What's the difference?
I look at Harrison.
Mental.
Yeah. I mean, Harrison is a great athlete, don't get me wrong, but he's, 32 years old? Mm-hmm. How many 32 years old guys are playing up there still?
At that level.
At that level.
They're not coming down the other way.
Yeah, not coming down.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you.